Okay, welcome to Prophetic Table Talk. We are excited to be here again on Sunday night, and there, of course, there's a lot of things going on, but we're in a time where there is a lot of things going on. So Connie's going to start with the updates.
We are living in history, right?
That's right, it's a good place to be.
I do want to give a big shout out to the Lord Jesus because if you follow us or Amanda Grace, you'll know that her husband was in the hospital for about 3 days with seizures and he is home now. So we are rejoicing with Amanda Grace about that. Her
Yes.
husband is home.
Hmm.
Um, and then I also wanted to make note that today at 6:30, I did check the gold and silver prices, and silver was showing to be $93.28, which I just keep hearing Bo in my in my ear talking about once we get past 50, we are so there. And then gold again at 6:30 was 46.81 and 20 cents. And before we got started, we were talking with Shane about that. And Shane kind of wanted to just give us a little bit of insight on what we're seeing with this price increase.
Well, with this price increase specifically tonight, and I think it has a lot to do with the geopolitical stuff that's going on, especially in Iran. And the gold and silver prices were both manipulated up. It was not actually orders that actually were placed, kind of like like you're seeing, like Samsung was needing 50 million ounces of silver. They only got 5 million. So therefore the price increased in order for them to get what they needed. It was not that kind of situation tonight. This was strictly a manipulation. And personally, the amount of manipulation that came in tonight within the first 15 to 30 seconds, I don't see it being a JP Morgan. I don't see it because JP Morgan was actually short on gold at $4,600. They were short. So they're roughly a billion over. They're in the billions in the red right now on their gold trade. Um, and rightfully so, because if you were watching the markets last week, $4,600 is a good level to go short on gold for to go down to the 4,500 to $4,520, and then liquidate your shorts and take all the profits. It was a really good move strategically and charting. Like if you just look at the charts strategically, this is where we're going. And so your JP Morgans were short on gold and silver. Your big box traders were short on gold and silver. So this to me leans a little bit more to government manipulation, and I'm not talking U.S. government. I'm leaning towards the fact that of what's going on geopolitical with Iran. I'm leaning towards the fact that what's going on geopolitical with Denmark over Greenland, because conspiracy theory is that the 800 hangings that Iran was supposed to be doing over the weekend, the reason they even caught the people is the intel on how to find where these people were in Iran was leaked to the government of Iran by Denmark
Hmm.
in order to stop Trump on the Greenland issue. So if you look at that, what's the other backup thing that you do? You drive the price of gold up until it weakens the dollar,
Hmm.
and you cripple the U.S. economy by weakening the dollar. So this is pure manipulation at this point because our buy orders are below us. They're not above us. They're not anywhere where we've been tonight. Our buy orders are currently below us. So if I'm looking at all of our orders, like for instance, I have a thing called book map that shows the book orders, and our buy orders are so far below us, it's crazy. And it's it's corporations that are wanting to buy gold and buy silver at a specific price, and it wasn't very far from where we were 3 hours ago. So there were no buy orders that actually came in on the books to drive up this price. All the buy order that came in was an off the book buy order that could not be seen by anyone.
Hmm.
So the I personally know two people that lost over $1 million on that off the book buy order. And even they were buying gold and silver and they still lost over $1 million on a buy. So
And how many seconds was that?
the it was about 4 milliseconds.
Gosh,
So
wow.
went from uh, $1.7 million in profit to $1.1 million loss in 4 milliseconds on
Man.
off the book orders being processed. So I'm watching this, and this is a manipulation like I have seen before in the U.S. markets, like Nasdaq, Dow Jones. I've seen this on gold and silver. At this point, this is we're kind of treading into uncharted territories. I've seen this on oil. It's very, very common on oil. It's not unusual. But gold and silver have kind of been kind of your staples. So your people that have gold and silver for that stability, so that's what I'm trying to get across. This is supposed to be our stable line, and now they're manipulating it.
Mm,
And to me, there's only about 8 or 9 people in the world that have that much power.
mm.
So with those 8 or 9 people, I think by morning we will know who did it.
Wow.
If it makes
Wow.
news, we'll know who did it
Hmm.
because they will have people after them.
Wow.
But yeah, seeing the price is fully expected. It's fully expected to go $125 an ounce for silver. I'm fully
Hmm.
expecting $5,000 an ounce for gold. I'm right there with Bo Palmy. I'm 100% with him on that. But seeing it done this way is a little bit unnerving because this is supposed to be a stable, like we've had a stable run. If you guys look at the markets, it's been a stable run with silver, a stable run with gold. To have this instability introduced into the gold and silver market is a little bit concerning. And
So I have
so,
a random question.
which this,
Um,
I will tell you this, I will add in one extra thing because we do talk about crypto some. This extreme manipulation that happened on gold and silver has brought crypto down drastically.
wow.
Um, like for instance, um, XRP is down 4 or 5% only in the last 3 hours. So I have not even looked at Bitcoin yet, but I'm looking at Ethereum, XRP, things like that, and it has come down drastically over this issue. Yep, Bitcoin is down as well. So looking at it live right now, Bitcoin's down about 3% in the last 3 hours. So this has struck the crypto market and the commodities market really hard.
Mm.
So just a quick question. Would your gold and silver um, financiers, whatever, like Bo
Hmm.
Polney, like Andrew Sorcini, like Sheckman, would they have any inclination that this was a manipulation, or are they all still, would they be jumping up and down that the price has gotten higher?
My initial my initial first thought is they would be jumping up and down that the price has gotten higher. And the reason I say that is not knocking them in any way. I'm giving them
Right.
full credit for everything that they prophesied, but I'm saying that they're not in the markets. Like I'm in the markets every single day.
Hmm.
I'm trading
Hmm.
funds not just for myself. I'm trading for other clients as well. And so when I see something like this, I know you cut off everything, you cut off all the accounts, you disconnect from everything and you walk away and you don't come back until the next day. Because if it starts like this, it's not going to end pretty,
Hmm.
no matter which way it goes. And it could go to $5,000 an ounce overnight while we're asleep. And even getting there, you could actually lose your entire investment portfolio just trying to get there. That's the type manipulation that I'm seeing.
Wow.
So, yes, they would be excited to see it at that level on a surface, and anybody would.
Hmm.
Just like you were checking on the spot prices before the broadcast. Anybody
Right.
would
Hmm.
see that with excitement. But when you're
Hmm.
looking at the back end and you're looking that we have orders that are off the books coming in, you know, stuff like that has been deemed insider trading, that kind of stuff that's going on. If you were doing that here in the US, the IRS would be knocking on your door in the morning. So the FTC would be filing papers against you, and you couldn't get any of the money you made if you were doing this type things to the market in the US.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. Well,
So
what an intro.
I'm thinking whoever's manipulating this price is extremely powerful. I'll put it that way. They're not a
Okay.
normal person.
Okay.
And I'm thinking way more powerful than JP Morgan and BlackRock.
All right. Well, moving on. On January the 12th, we had
I think,
something happen.
hey, did we not have prophetic words about the mask coming off? This could be part of it, guys.
Well,
This type manipulation, and if it ended up making news that this company or this person ended up doing this manipulation or this country, that could be your mask coming off.
wow.
Good point.
Interesting.
Hmm.
That's very good.
This could be
Uh-huh.
they could have just revealed their hand.
Wow. Okay. Well, in our capital city on the 12th, we had a pre-dawn arson attack to severely damage our Beth Israel congregation. Now, this is the state's largest synagogue, and it's the only Jewish house of worship here in Jackson, Mississippi. So, surveillance footage showed a suspect splashing some sort of accelerant inside the building before igniting the fire, which actually destroyed the library and administrative offices and heavily damaged some Torah scrolls. Now, the fire occurred during Shabbat, but there were no injuries reported. So I feel like that's kind of significant here in
It is,
Jackson.
but they have also arrested 19-year-old Stephen Spencer Pittman. He's a resident of Madison, Mississippi. Uh, he was found at the hospital being treated for non-life threatening burns. According to the
Huh?
federal documents, Pittman admitted the responsibility for the arson and told the investigators he specifically targeted the Jewish house of worship. The FBI affidavit states that Pittman used anti-Semitic language, referring to the synagogue as the synagogue of Satan. Pittman's father, and as far as I can find, his occupation and name has not been publicly released, played a key role in the investigation. Court records show that Pittman confessed the attack to his father, and his father contacted law enforcement and through text messages and location data. I'm sure on all this on the phone, they were able to track him to the hospital. But this is the same synagogue that was attacked in 1967 by the Ku Klux Klan when they bombed the synagogues during the civil rights era. In response to the latest attack, local churches and faith leaders and community members have rallied around the congregations, and services are continuing there. So the federal prosecutors have charged Pittman with arson of a religious building, a crime that could put him in prison for 5 to 25 years.
Wow. Okay. And we probably all are aware that Bill and Hillary Clinton refused to testify in a Republican-led congressional investigation of the late convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein, saying it was a partisan exercise. Now, the House Oversight Chairman, James Comer, responded by announcing plans to pursue contempt of Congress proceedings. Now, this move could ultimately lead to a DOJ referral. Although this is interesting, no wrongdoing has been alleged against Clinton. How is that possible?
Yeah.
That is, like, how is it possible? But now the Clintons wrote a letter, and you can get this letter online. The New York Times and several other places have this letter if you want to read it. But in the letter, they pointed out several things about this. Let me see if I can get my notes here where they said this, because it was very interesting on what they said about it. But they basically thought it was just a fiasco to continue to look into these matters with Epstein. I don't know why the Clintons would call this a fiasco. But one of the things that I thought was very interesting, and let's just talk about what the Bible says about it. Ecclesiastes 8:11 says, when the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, the people's hearts are filled with schemes to do wrong. So think about all that Clinton got away with when he was president. He wasn't impeached. He was convicted, but not impeached. People want to impeach Donald Trump. He got impeached twice and wasn't ever removed from office. But the Bible clearly tells us that when the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, other people's hearts are filled with schemes to wrongdoing. Proverbs 17:15 says, acquitting the guilty and condemning the innocent, the Lord detests them both. And Isaiah 123 speaks directly to leadership. And it says, you rulers are rebellious, partners with thieves. They all love bribes and chase after gifts. They do not defend the cause of the fatherless and the widow's case. That's very interesting what the Bible has to say about this type of thing. And we have David Harris, if you want to play that, talking about the Clintons and what he thinks. Have you got that one? Here you go.
Ready to see Bill and Hillary Clinton in handcuffs?
Well, here we are again. I don't think it's any secret. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton joined her husband in defying a bipartisan lawful congressional subpoena to show up today. I think what's most disappointing to the Oversight Committee is the fact that we have, in good faith, negotiated with the Clintons' attorneys for 5 months. Throughout the past 5 months, they've implied to us they were trying to make a date work. In fact, the last date we had, they notified us 3 days beforehand, said that they would love to come, but they have a funeral to attend. And we have been over backwards to try to schedule the Clinton. No, I'm still talking. I'm still talking. Go ahead. Hey, get him out of here. You're not even a reporter. Get out of here. Here's the situation. We're going to hold both Clintons in criminal contempt of Congress.
I think it's coming, friends. That's exactly what they got Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon on. Contempt of Congress, and they both went to jail. Are you?
That's pretty good. Contempt of Congress. But I also think one thing's very interesting. They've been trying to get this for 5 months, and he said that. So we've been wondering why we haven't seen anything. They've been trying to get them there.
All right. Then we've got undercover footage released by O'Keefe Media Group, showed a U.S. Secret Service agent allegedly sharing sensitive security details about Vice President J.D. Vance with a journalist posing as a Tinder date. The agent, Tom Escato, reported disclosed schedule, formation, locations, and even shared photos from Air Force Two. So it sounds like he's under a little bit of scrutiny there. And then on the 14th, speaking at the Detroit Economic Club, President Donald Trump announced plans to suspend all federal payments to sanctuary cities and states containing them effective February the 1st. Now, Trump accused these jurisdictions of shielding criminals while undermining federal law enforcement. All payments need to be suspended for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got on the 15th, the U.S. Navy's USS Abraham Lincoln has been ordered to head to the Middle East in response to escalating tensions between Washington and Tehran. They've got a nuclear-powered supercarrier that's been operating in the South China Sea and last week conducted 3 fire exercises and a replenishment at sea as a part of its ongoing routine operations.
Hmm.
All right.
Have you got a comment on that, Shane?
No, I'm good with that one. I just know that I agree with Trump. The only way to fight these people is to show of force. They're not going to respect anything else you give them.
Well, and on 115, Iran is saying the bullet won't miss this time. They're Iran's assassination threat to Trump. Now, this threat comes in the backdrop of protests in Iran, and Trump has threatened to intervene militarily several times since the movement that has shaken the country began late December. Now, these protests are the largest since the Islamic Republic was proclaimed in 1979.
I got a question about that one. Bullet won't miss this time. Is this them confessing to the first one that they were in on it? The way I read it,
That's
the
exactly
bullet
what
won't
it
miss
says.
this time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that means the first time was actually you guys. So you're confessing to a crime. So
Oh, but we thought it was somebody just up on the roof, right? Just some
yeah,
little,
that's some
some
kid
little
on the roof.
nobody.
Nobody on the roof. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
bullet won't miss this time. Interesting. Like I said, it
Mm-hmm.
sure sounds like a confession to me.
Mm-hmm. Very good observation. And then we've got Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, and she has given her Nobel Peace Prize medal to President Donald Trump during the meeting at the White House, saying it was a recognition of his commitment to her country's freedom. And then Minnesota. What is going on in Minnesota? Some prosecutors were let go this week after they gave notice that they resigned due to internal disagreements regarding the federal probe into the Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent shooting of Renee Good. 5 federal prosecutors were fired at the direction of the Department of Justice, headed by Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. And then Argentina's government designated branches of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, Lebanon, and Jordan as terrorist organizations. The office of President Milei said. So we've got the Muslim Brotherhood over there. And then Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that the U.S. will indefinitely suspend immigrant visa processing for citizens of 75 countries starting January the 21st.
That should be interesting, and that's next week.
Yeah.
Or this coming week, really.
The FBI has executed a search warrant this week at the Virginia home of Washington Post reporter Hannah Natanson, actually seizing her phone, her Garmin watch, her personal laptop, and a work-issued computer. Now, federal officials are saying that the reporter herself is not the target of the investigation. The warrant is tied to Aurelio Perez Lugones, a government contractor and system administrator with top secret clearance, who has been charged with unlawfully retaining and mishandling classified national defense information, including material related to Venezuela.
So I wanted to know a little bit more about just what they went to look at her because of him, a reporter, okay, and what he was into. So basically, this person was accused of searching databases containing classified intelligence without authorization. So his official work what he did officially was he was involved in maintaining, supporting, and optimizing computer systems, network, and software for government agencies. He was a contractor to work on their computers, okay? That meant he had all of this access to classified documents and data. I'm still trying to figure out why she knows it, okay? So they found classified reports in his lunchbox and the basement of his home during the search, including documents marked secret. The FBI alleged that on October the 28th, 2025, he took screenshots of classified intelligence reports on a foreign country, pasted them into a text document, and printed that document. That's really interesting. He would even do that at work. Okay. And then he was charged in federal court with an unlawful retention of national defense information, a crime that carries serious penalties with the U.S. law. So as of the latest, he's not been criminally charged with leaking classified documents to the media or any third party, or court filings do not formally accuse him of actually sharing or transmitting anything with a reporter. So why did they go search her? So I have not, that is interesting. I have not been able to find out why they're over searching her since they've not linked him to a reporter. But apparently he was taking care of government computers and he was getting classified information. But I'm not saying she's innocent. I'm just saying it's very interesting why they go to the reporter now and seize her stuff when they haven't been able to charge anything yet. When somebody knows something different, you can post it.
All right. On the 15th, President Donald Trump threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act in response to rising tensions between protesters and federal personnel in Minneapolis. If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. President Trump wrote that in a Truth Social post. And on the 16th, the U.S. Department has opened a criminal investigation of Minnesota officials, including Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, over an alleged conspiracy to impede immigration agents, a source familiar with the probe. They've kind of been in the news here of late.
Yeah.
And then we've got federal ICE agents. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's interesting how much exposure Minneapolis and Minnesota is getting.
Federal ICE agents conducting a targeted traffic stop in Minneapolis on January 14th were violently attacked during an attempted arrest of a Venezuelan national in the country illegally.
Yes, and you can see that one. Oh no, there's some Instagram post about that one, and the ICE agents are just saying, I just can't understand why you're interfering. While you're, and there are people now that's even in Minneapolis that are got guns and they're standing in their yard saying the ICE agents can't come on their property. That's also posted, John. This is interesting. What is it going on in Minneapolis?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And with the gentleman that was beaten, I think yesterday
Mm-hmm.
in Minneapolis, you know, the interesting thing that I want to ask and I want to know is, of the crowd of people that were there in protest and that were there beating this American, how many of them were Americans?
That's a good question.
How many of them were here legally?
Mm-hmm.
That's two questions that I have. How many were actually Americans, number one? And number two, how many of them that were not Americans are here legally, literally trying to kill an American citizen that just doesn't agree with them?
Mm-hmm.
And people want to know why we don't want open borders. Uh,
Yeah.
It's because you're not coming to assimilate. I watched a movie the other night that was really interesting, and the gentleman was here from Cuba. He worked hard. He came here. He started from nothing and built up an entire empire. But he was from Cuba, and he had family visit, and he was speaking English. And they asked him point blank, "Are you not Cuban? Then why do you not speak your language?" And he actually said, "I fought to get here, and I fought for everything that I have. How would I dishonor the country that gave me everything that I have by not adopting their customs, their traditions, and their ways?"
Wow.
That is a really good point. If you want to be here, then you're coming here for what we offer, what our freedom is, what our ability to prosper is, and all of the above. Then why do you want to bring what you tried to leave here?
Yes.
Hmm. That's a good point.
Very good. Very,
Okay.
very, very good point that was made. I was
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed to see that in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I will just throw this in. Acts 17:26 says, God created all nations from one man, determining their specific times and places to live on the earth, so that humanity would seek him, as he, God, is not far. So he determined specific places on the earth. Um, that's very interesting for people. And you can keep looking at what the Bible says about borders and where God put people and said that they would be. He gave us all a specific place to be.
All right. On the 16th, Donald Trump announced a sweeping healthcare proposal aimed at lowering costs by shifting power away from insurers and towards individuals. Now, this plan would redirect government subsidies into personal health savings accounts, allowing people to directly purchase insurance or pay for care. The government is going to pay the money directly to you. It goes to you. And then you take the money and buy your own health care, said the president while announcing his plan. Now, this also includes aggressive prescription drug pricing reforms, hospital price transparency mandates, and expanded access to over-the-counter medications. Now, this will require congressional approval. That sounds like a really good plan to me.
Well, it
I
does to me too. It
But
does.
you have to understand, this has been the Republican healthcare plan all along. It's just we haven't had the agreement all the way through from the executive to the congressional branch to actually get this done.
Hmm.
And you have to also understand that yeah, we might get this through in the House, but we're still going to have Democrats vote with us in the Senate to even get this passed.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. And that's a fair point. Because what they did with our healthcare system under Obamacare, it led us into COVID and the fiasco of COVID. It was just setting it up because it put so much authority under the hospital and took it away from the doctor to make his own decision by his better judgment about the patient. It put everybody into where you were having to do what the hospital said in order to keep your job. And it took away doctors being able to practice medicine.
Yeah.
I agree. And then at the same time, it gave the hospital the authority to refuse health care to somebody who needed health care because
That's
they
true.
didn't have COVID.
That's true.
There was a lot of people that were extremely sick and even died without having COVID because they refused them because they come back negative for a COVID test.
And they were getting paid for COVID, higher prices for COVID
Oh yeah,
treatment.
for sure. Mm-hmm. All right. On the 16th, also, former VP Kamala Harris spent years fear-mongering about the so-called climate change,
Mm-hmm.
and her recent seaside acquisition suggests she may not have been as serious about the supposed threat as she previously let on. Now, during her first failed and hopefully last failed presidential campaign, where she proposed the U.S. blow $10 trillion on tracking the professed problem, Harris wrote, "Our oceans are warming. Sea levels are rising. Pollution is threatening our air and water. Droughts are hurting our crops. Fires are burning our forests. Extreme weather is destroying our communities. We are poisoning the planet." Well, Harris previously pushed legislation that would annually award $50 million in grants to various entities for the purpose of actually carrying out this climate resilient living shoreline project, and in her words, mitigating against the sea level rise. Now, when announcing in 2023 that the Biden-Harris administration was recommending 562 million in funding to make communities and the economy more resilient to the alleged climate change, Harris told a crowd at the University of Miami, to live in a coastal community is to live on the front lines of the climate crisis.
Sounds like she wants to be on the front lines of something. Maybe the climate crisis is, I mean, if she's going to buy a house where she's been criticizing,
Mm.
just just saying, it's interesting. Wow, she didn't take her own advice.
And then President Donald Trump said he would introduce 10% tariffs on imports from several European allies for sending troops to take part in the military exercises in Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark that he has repeatedly threatened to annex. Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, and Finland have journeyed to Greenland for purposes unknown. Now, this is a very dangerous situation for safety, security, and survival of our planet, Trump said in a Truth Social post.
Well, it's interesting. We have a Jeffrey Mead talking about Greenland too, Shane, if you want to pull that one up. But Greenland is real interesting when you look at it, because not only do you have all these countries, you have now all these billionaires going over and investing in Greenland and trying to make sure they've got their investment going on there. And then you have all of this information about what's under the ice, like some type of canyon that is larger than the Grand Canyon. There is all types of things coming out about Greenland. So it's so interesting about what the real thing is.
Talking about Greenland and the canyon larger than the Grand Canyon, There was a Discovery episode back in the late 2000s, and you can no longer get this episode. It is completely on lockdown. You can find where it aired, you can find the name of the episode, but they will not give you a copy of it. It is not available for purchase or anything. And it was talking about when they were doing their explorations, where they were exploring Egypt and South America and different countries, they explored Greenland. And that specific episode, they actually found the largest pyramid known to man in Greenland.
Wow.
So Greenland is very important in more ways than I think we know. So here's the clip for Jeffrey Mead.
President Trump is using tariffs again. So on January 17th, he announced new tariffs on 8 NATO allies, including the UK, Germany, France, and Sweden, starting at 10% and rising to 25% by June 1st. Why? Because he wants Greenland, and he's using economic pressure to make it happen. He called for the complete and total purchase of Greenland, citing national security and the growing threat of Russia and China in the Arctic. He's saying the tariffs will stay until the deal is made. And this isn't the first time he's pushed for Greenland, but this time he seems to be backing it with pretty hard leverage. European leaders aren't liking this. They call it economic blackmail. Protests have already broken out in Copenhagen and Nuuk. I think that's how you pronounce it. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I was wrong. I just went and looked it up. It's pronounced Nuuk. So yeah, protests are breaking out in Copenhagen and Nuuk, while some NATO countries are deploying troops to Greenland. Critics are saying this will shatter NATO. I guess time will tell. But that's all I got for now. Just a reminder, I have a free email newsletter. I send this out every morning around.
Yeah, and there's NATO involved in this too.
Yes, it is. And then this also just verifies that much more that we are currently at war. It's just an economic war, but we are at war. And I think it's very important that people realize that we are at war. This is an economic war. And part of what's going on with gold and silver and the manipulation of gold and silver is part of it. So,
Interesting.
yeah, just like I can add in something that's not on our list to talk about tonight, but I can add in that we currently have a bill going through the House in relation to cryptocurrency, and they are trying to put a cap on it as quickly as possible because at first the banks jumped into it. And now what they realized is at the current rate, if we adopt cryptocurrency on a personal level, every individual, and what would happen is we could literally become our own banks. We could literally get together and a small group of people pool their cryptocurrencies and start our own banking system right now. And if we did that, we would no longer need the banks. We would no longer need the Federal Reserve. So they are basically trying to backpedal as fast as they can, because if everything goes through that Trump is pushing through, then everybody, you become your own bank in relation to cryptocurrency. You have the ability to loan with interest. You have the ability to actually stake that cryptocurrency loan and earn interest while you're earning interest, just like the banks do. And they are trying to head this off at the pass, but I feel like it's too little too late because Trump's not going to let them win at this point because he's already got them over a barrel. So I'm putting that out there to say all of this manipulation that we see with gold and silver is hurting the US dollar. The higher gold goes up, the lower the value of the US dollar, period. That's just how it works. And our value that we're actually having in the US dollar is due to quantitative easing by the Federal Reserve, which means this: they print a debt certificate and then they turn around and in order to buy that debt to strengthen the US dollar, they print US dollars to buy the debt to strengthen the US dollar. And it is the epitome of robbing Peter to pay Paul, is what's happening. And they've been doing this for years, but it's really picked up since 2020. So that's the writing on the wall that Trump is seeing, to where we have to have a new economic system. That's the reason for the tariffs. That's the reason for bringing all these billions and trillions of dollars in the form of tariffs, is in order to secure a new economic system before this one implodes. Because if you're holding US dollars right now, if you had $1 million US as of 3 hours ago, now you have about 917,000 instead of 1 million.
Wow. Wow.
So you understand how this system works with all this quantitative easing is actually hurting us, and it's just keeping us propped up by a thread, is what's happening. So on the back end, that's the reason they're trying to stop the tariffs, because this takes power away from the feds.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in an economic war, and we're at war with the Federal Reserve right now. And if we can keep the cryptocurrency set in place, just like Trump has it in place, you will see in the spring, you will see new highs across the board, all cryptocurrency. So,
Well, I just
and
want to
you will
mention
see,
one more thing. Go ahead. I'm
uh-huh.
sorry.
I can say you will see cryptocurrency banks start being formed this year if we stay the course.
So I just want to mention one more thing. We talked about JP Morgan. President Trump is actually going to sue. He's planning to sue JP Morgan Chase, accusing the banking giant of improperly cutting off his accounts in the aftermath of the January 6th Capitol riot.
Well, and that's understandable, because you have to look at the way Trump operates, okay? How does he operate in a form that he basically doesn't pay any taxes? I mean, he's personally not paying taxes, and we all know that. It's not a secret. And he's not kept it a secret. Yeah, the businesses pay taxes on their employees and funds and so on and so forth. But personally, he's not paying taxes. Why? Because every dollar he's making, he's investing. And he is living off of the cash flow from those dollars. Well, when they shut off the accounts, they didn't shut off $1 billion account that he had sitting there with just a whole bunch of cash in it. They shut off access to the cash flow from his investments.
Mm.
So if you could imagine you're driving a Rolls Royce, or you're driving a G-Wagon like Eric Trump's wife was doing, and she goes to put $40 in gas with a card that has over 7 figures on it, and it won't even purchase $40 in gas because it's been turned off. That's what happened to them.
Hmm.
That was the extremity of what happened to them. And that right there is illegal. They can't do that. Just because, I mean, how many drug dealers wash their money through banks and they don't cut them off? This was not washing money through banks. This was just literally cash flow from investments. And they cut them off.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we have enough updates.
Yes.
Let me see where we can go. We have Bo Palmy. We've been talking about this sudden wealth, millions gone. He had summed it up. Well, he told a lot, but let me just go over the points of what's in this paragraph, okay? He lays out a prophetic and a numerical framework in what he said on 1/10/26 in Calgary. The framework suggests that January 2026 is going to mark a major turning point spiritually, economically, and globally. And he's focused on the biblical patterns, the number symbols, and I could read all of that, and we would read some of it, okay? But he highlights January the 14th, connecting the Julian calendar New Year, biblical timelines, and the historical calendar manipulations. And we've had calendar manipulations, and that's one of the things that he keeps on talking about, that we're not on God's correct calendar, okay? So basically, he says we've got to get to God's true timeline, and he points out that when Jesus was on earth, it was the Julian calendar, and still wasn't God's calendar that they were using. But Bo Palmy emphasizes in the first of this talk that he's given, we're standing at a Noah's Ark moment, or we're standing at the Red Sea. So we really are. We're at that point in history where we're standing and we're there. We are basically there. We're under an open heaven. Could you imagine being at Noah's Ark and God says, okay, close the door? And that's where we are. Or can you imagine, because that's what happened at Noah, they did what? They rode the sea, protected while God destroyed all the evildoers. Or Moses at the Red Sea, same thing. He's at the Red Sea. God's going to say cross, and he's going to drown Pharaoh's army. So he ties everything to silver, and we've talked about silver earlier, suggesting that it symbolizes God's people leaving Egypt with provision. And that's what he's talking about happening to God's people. If there's ever a time that we could say that, can you imagine? And that's what he talks about, blessings beyond your imagination. Can you imagine being at that time in history? And I've heard preachers talk about the wealth transfer forever. Okay, but we're really at the wealth transfer. So he's got a new way of referring to where we are in January 2026. And he calls it Bravo, BRAVO. And that stands for blessings beyond imagination, revival beyond imagination, awakening beyond imagination, vindication. And how many of us need to be vindicated? Vindication beyond imagination, and open heavens. And we're in a season of Jubilee. We're at the 250th anniversary of our country. So this is where we are. So he also draws a parallel between King David and Solomon and modern leadership, suggesting a transition from warfare, because David was a warfare king. He led Israel into warfare, and that's why he couldn't build the temple, into Solomon's type of era, which is prosperity and a period of cleansing. Okay. And so he concludes what he's talking about by stressing the church doesn't just win, but the church wins at an appointed time in a moment that we're approaching rapidly. So we talked about it last week, and he said that January would definitely be the time for exposure. So watch January closely, he says in this. Stay anchored in the truth and prepare for sudden change. And haven't we been seeing changes, okay? Because God moves and everything shifts. So we've got to pay attention to what's going on. And he closes with, the glory has begun to fall in places, and we're going to see the glory for the church. Does anybody want to make a comment on this one about Bo and what he said?
I do want to bring up the fact that if you keep up with him at all, he years ago was talking about the 421, 124 pattern that the Lord showed him. And so we are, the 421 was when the Pope died this past year. And so just want to make mention that we are rapidly coming up upon 124, which will be Saturday. So, we don't know if anything may happen, but that is quite significant as far as his watch dates and patterns, 421, 124. So I did just want to mention that.
Yes. He emphasizes and points out that we're at certain marks along the way, and I definitely agree, okay? He expands on Noah's prophetic timeline, and he explains a 40-day period that would be ending in late February. So, Noah was on the ark for 40 days is what he's talking about. I think I'm getting into the next prophecy. But he talks about these period, and he places a marker. And one of his markers starting January the 20th, which would be Tuesday, okay, coming into that week, okay. He points out that's for next year. He points out and places January the 20th, 2027, which would be aligning with the inauguration timing and Kim Clement's prophecy of 2027 as a year beyond the veil of limitation. So, wow, where are we headed, right? Anybody want to add to that? So Sonia, on 114th, he and Dave Scarlett had a talk. If you want to take up that.
Okay. Well, he talks about, he says, we haven't seen the explosion yet. And he says, let me repeat, we haven't seen the silver explosion yet. He says it's going to happen within the next 10 days, starting today, 40 days and 40 nights. It begins today. The glory starts to fall upon the earth. It continues for another 110 days to maximum. And 150 days, Trump's birthday, to the exact day, you can't make this up. He says, then we step into the 4th of July, the greatest celebration in human history. We have midterms in November, completely the greatest midterms the world has ever seen because evil has been eradicated. We will have perfectly beautiful elections in November of 2026 because evil's,
I am counting on good elections in 20. Go ahead.
Yes, because evils will be exposed, and we will not be in the fake fraudulent dominion system. And we have a true first vote for America, the Republic of November of 2026. This is all biblical timing in Scripture, and then we step off into the ark, into a new world, a new rainbow. This will be the fire of God. And what's going to happen, that new rainbow brings the revival of human history. That sounds crazy, right? Right now, but it does because the glory hasn't filled the earth yet. And when Christ moves and we experience what's called the Joel 2:31, this will be the Joel movement, the great and the terrible day. The great and terrible days, both, it's terrible and great. Terrible for the wicked and great for the church. Mm-hmm. And there's a little thing right here, insert where it says $92.71, Bo, as we broadcast this today in silver. Okay, so he goes on and talks about, he's talking about a prophecy about the fall of Babylon. And it says, when silver goes to $50, you will start to watch the collapse of Babylon, okay? And we haven't seen the Babylon system just fall yet. But again, we're at a very important time today, being January the 14th, which today is January the 18th. But this is when he was speaking about this. He says, or is it? We'll talk about that in a second. But again, yesterday, we had President Clinton was supposed to show up and he failed to do so. We talked about that earlier. Today, I'm not sure what's going on with Hillary, but she's supposed to be showing up today. And of course, we know that she did not. So this is a very interesting point in our world where the system of, when you read scripture and we get to the writing on the wall, what was it? It was many, many tackle of Harrison. And the translation Daniel gave us was I cannot pronounce that word. Connie, help me out there. Belshazzar or something. I don't know. It's Belshazzar.
Oh, Belshazzar.
Thank you. Have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Okay, he wants to explain this. Weighing in the balance is when a government official, particularly a president of the United States, feels that he is above the law. Would that not beautifully represent You've been waiting on the balances and found wanting, meaning that they think they're above the law, talking about the Clintons.
Mm-hmm.
So there are no more balances. Let that sink in. If a president of the United States thinks he is now above the law, no longer needs to show up to Congress or answer to anybody, there are no more balances. It goes on to talk about because when Babylon falls, silver explodes. We've watched gold go up for 2 years. It's been exciting. We've always said the last horse out of the gate will be um, silver. When silver goes, it will take down Babylon. It's going to cause the banks to freak out. It's going to cause the banks to go bankrupt. It's going to cause what is going to cause bank runs. We're about to see that, and it's going to cause lines out every single gold and silver dealer that sells them out there, massive lines out their doors, because everyone's going to finally, suddenly realize they've been lied to. Silver's at $92. We haven't seen the explosion yet. Let me repeat. We haven't seen the silver explosion yet, and I believe it's going to go down within the next 10 days. So we're ready at 92. So what's an explosion going to be? In which I know that Shane has already addressed what's going on with silver right now. So Shane, you may want to talk into that or have some comments about that.
Other than the fact that I absolutely agree from everything I'm seeing with the demand for silver, period, it's got to go higher. Demand drives price, so it's
Mm-hmm.
got to go higher. That's the very reason. I mean, I can compare it right now to just oil. Oil has been hovering around 57, 58, sometimes 60, $61 a barrel. But the reason it's hovering there is because we have a lot more oil in reserves than what different countries are actually reporting. If they reported everything that we actually had in reserves, we would drop below $40 a barrel. And basically, oil companies couldn't operate at that. So in turn, they keep it under wraps how much they actually have in reserve in order to keep the oil companies operating. So with silver, on the other hand, completely different resource, and it goes through a much harder process in order to acquire. We can't just go out there tomorrow and say, hey, we need 800 million more ounces. We're just going to go just get it out of this our stash pile. You can't. We don't have that. We don't have that luxury with silver. So the price of silver does have to go up based on the demand alone. Because everything we're using right now has silver in it. Every electronic device has silver in it in
It does.
order for it to operate.
Mm-hmm.
So the demand is there. So yes, I'm 100% just from a market, you know, demand alone, it's got to go up. I'm still sticking to the $125 an ounce before we see any kind of major pullback on pricing.
Oh, well, let me
And
point.
the only
Go
reason
ahead.
I would see pullback at that level is because it would be so expensive, the demand would temporarily drop.
Well, we
So
need it to go up so the Babylon system will fall.
that
Yes.
so that's in Revelations 18, the Babylon system, and it has a word in here I want people to hear and see if you get it. Okay, and it starts with Revelation 18:1. After these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. So Bo is talking about the glory of God already pouring out. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for unclean and hated birds. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. And I hear another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, lest you share in her sins, lest you receive of her plagues. For her sins have reached heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. And iniquities talk about generational sins. Render to her as she rendered to you. Repay her double according to her works. But keep listening. Okay. In the cup which she is mixed, mix double for her. In the measure that she glorified herself and lived luxuriously, in the same measure give her torment and sorrow. For she says in her heart, I sit as queen, and I am no widow, and will not see sorrow. Therefore her plagues will come in one day. That's what Bo keeps talking about. So that could be the fall of the markets. That could be silver going astronomical. That it says her plagues will come in one day. All of this will happen in one day. Okay? Death and mourning and famine. And she will be utterly burnt with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judges her. So we're looking for a one-day event for her to fall.
Praise the Lord. We're ready.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Connie, urgent prayer needed for Trump, if you want to go over that.
I do, just specifically because we talked about the assassination threat, that Iran is taunting out there. Veronica West had this word on the 17th, which was just yesterday. Um, She said, urgent prayer needed, Trump in great danger. So, yesterday, today, and again this evening, I have been arrested by the Spirit of God to continue to pray for a divine hedge of protection around President Trump, his administration, and his family. She said, listen, this evening I suddenly saw something in the realm of the Spirit which made me stop and give it my attention. I saw what looked like a set of scales. And as I looked at the scales, suddenly I saw a large silver bullet fall upon the scales, and the scales tipped. I saw black and white dominoes begin to fall very rapidly, and each domino represented a nation. Then I heard watch and pray against a sudden and deadly demonic attack that will create a tipping point that will trigger a global domino effect, and there's no going back. As I heard these words, I began to pray. The following recent word quickened to me. She said, what's interesting about the word is that to, to spoke powerfully and prophetically at the time of Charlie Kirk's assassination. So she is submitting this, and she references a word that she had from October the 20th, 2025, about America being a nation in mourning. Let me just read these few little things right here. It says, now it's difficult to articulate the depth of what I saw in the spirit, but it was if the nation had suddenly fallen into a state of shock, akin to the reaction one might have after experiencing a sudden traumatic event. I literally saw the nation being shaken and violently shaking like a mother whose body goes into shock after a hard and traumatic birth. I saw the nation of America plummet into total chaos and confusion, and it was as if a dark cloud had suddenly covered the light of the sun, and deep darkness covered the nation. So again, she just reiterates that these are perilous times and great days of great and impending danger for President Trump and for his family. So that's a pretty significant quote warning right there from just yesterday.
Yes. Anybody else want to add to that one?
I do.
Okay.
I just want to say that the Lord also showed me something concerning Donald Trump, President Trump, a couple of weeks ago. I shared it with Ruth Ann, and I do agree that, and I have been praying for his safety, President Trump's safety. So I really want to, those that are listening and those that will listen to this broadcast, to take heed to this word and to take heed to the promptings of the Holy Spirit when the Lord tells you to pray for your president, pray for those that are in authority over you, whether you agree with him or not, because the Lord is sending out warnings for the church to pray. And when he sends these out, even though she had this vision, doesn't mean it's going to come to pass. We can divert it from
True.
happening. So I just want to encourage everybody to pray for him, pray for safety.
That's really good. That's really good. And Connie, you want to say anything about the prophetic word of eviction and conviction from Amanda?
Um, she did have a word December the 20th of 25. Watch, says the Lord, as this all unfolds and shock begins in January, says the Lord. At what is unearthed, found out, and stopped just short of their multi-point mark, says the Lord. So that just kind of fits right into what we've been talking about.
Yes,
I mean, it's always good to go back and watch hers,
it is. And then she's also giving us remember the blood moons are coming March the 2nd and 3rd. And that this year, that usually means, it's usually an indication, it's a warning of something to come.
and that is Purim as well.
It is, it's Purim. So, yeah, this is the time of Esther that we're in. So that's another country that was saved. And, last week we also talked about it's going to be a time that the church is going to have to rise up, according to Bo, like Esther. And do our part as Esther, which is going to be very important. So, Sonia, you want to sum everything up prophetically?
Well, I want to sum up something. I want to just share something that the Lord gave me this afternoon, or it was kind of hot off the press. And I mean, it was just an understanding. It was just a Yahoo moment where I'm seeing a lot of things. And I do look at social media. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't, because I do, because you got to keep up with stuff and what people are saying. And there's a lot of people across this nation that are really irritated at President Trump because, his campaign slogan was "Make America Great Again." And he's gone outside the borders of the nation with Iran, the Venezuela, with Israel, with different things that he's doing. And God just showed it to me, and it was so beautiful. And I said, this makes so much sense, because I'll be honest with you. I love President Trump. I don't agree. I don't have to agree with everything he says or he does. But at the same time, I voted for him. I support him. And I believe God put him in office. And I believe that he's a David. He's going to sling he's going to put Goliath down, and he's coming against this Babylonian system. And we have to understand the process. But what I saw is how he is, even though there are things being done within our nation with the drug cartel, with ICE and different things, he has gone outside the borders of the United States to deal with all these other countries, and it is for the American people.
Mm-hmm.
It is for the American people. And the Lord just showed me that everything that he's doing, because he's such a good chess player and he's such a good strategist and he's very intelligent, he knows what he's doing. I may not understand it, and I may get frustrated about some things, but I do know what God showed me, that if we will be patient and let God work through him and pray for him and keep him covered in prayer. It is essential that we keep him covered in prayer. We're the ones that's going to benefit, and so will the other nations. They will benefit too. And think about the tariffs, what he's doing. It's for a reason. Everything he's doing is for a reason. And so I want to just talk to those that are in our nation that are getting frustrated and getting aggravated because they're not seeing the result in one issue or one situation that they think needs attention. He's hitting it and he's hitting it, and he has to go global because it affects our free country. That's what the Lord showed me. And so I just want to encourage everybody to you've got to get outside of your mentality of having God in a box and having that. Yes, President Trump is just a man, but so was David. So was Abraham. So was Isaac, and all Isaiah, all these people, Noah, Moses. They were just men, but God worked through them mightily to bring freedom, just like He worked through Moses to bring freedom to Israel. And God is wanting to bring freedom to America for a time, because we know the end result of what's going to happen in the end times, but it's not time for that time. And we've got to step into the timing of God and what God is doing to understand what's going on, and to get in that third heaven mentality and think like God thinks, and get out of the mindset that we've been programmed in our society, and get your head out of the clouds, especially out of the second heaven. Okay. So that's my thoughts. That's all I wanted to share.
That's good. Shane, you got anything you want to say economically before we go?
No, I'm good. I'm just curious how this week is going to turn out, especially after this manipulation in the market, and see if our demand is going to support this.
Guess we'll know in the morning.
Actually, in the morning is a holiday, so we won't have the New York market online tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Isn't that
Very
interesting?
Yes, very interesting timing.
Wow.
Wow.
So it's just the Asian, the European markets on the tomorrow.
Yep. You're exactly right.
That's interesting. What's going on? Well, okay. Well, before we get off, let me talk about a few things that go with Global Vision Faith Center, who's actually the ministry behind everything that we're doing here. So if you'll pull up some things here, let's talk about that ministry and what all you might could benefit from there. We're waiting to see what comes up. Yeah, so we have a new class. If you're interested, coaching class that starts on February the 2nd at 6 p.m. It's called Conquer the Gaslight Spirit. And I think I got that word right. But here, class is going to deal with how to identify when you're making decisions by the flesh and how to deal with those flesh decisions that you made. Many times people think they're hearing God, but they're hearing their flesh.
Mm-hmm.
We soothe our flesh. So it's going to do that. It's going to show you about the emotional covenants you've made. And basically, this was the second group of giants that God made Israel face. So if you look at the meaning of this name, you will see what Israel was dealing with. The first group was the Hittites, and that's all forms of fear. And there's more than one kind of fear. If you are learning that class or would like to buy it when we put out to purchase it. But this spirit, you're going to learn how to restore spiritual traction and move forward when you lose traction, because this spirit actually makes you lose traction in what you're called to do. So we're all face this giant, okay, and establish healthy boundaries, because this spirit violated the boundaries of Israel. And we're going to see how you allow your own boundaries to be violated and how you've let the enemy in. God told Adam to shamar the garden. That means you've got to keep it boundaries. You've got to keep your boundaries. And you can't let anything in, and he let Satan in. So that starts. You can register at globalvisionfc.com. And there it is on that flyer. You can find it there. So let's go to the next things that's up, if we can get the next one up. Also, on the website, you can purchase this coaching class, Overcoming Athaliah, the daughter of Jezebel, is $65. And basically, most people are chasing Jezebel around when they need to be chasing Athaliah, because when Jezebel is defeated, the next thing you face is her daughter Athaliah. That's biblical principle. So that's dealt with in this teaching. Let's go to the next one. And then overcoming the religious spirit. Now, this is a good one, folks. Everybody will tell me you're not in religion. And all of us will say we're not in religion. Well, this one looks deep into what the religious spirit involves, and it's really eye-opening. That is also for purchase on the website. And again, Shane. And the next one, we can make a rolling thunder, whatever, applause while we're waiting on it. You got a t-shirt down there. Can you pull up the t-shirts?
Yeah, there we
And
go.
merchandise. Go to our merchandise store. We have our own design by KK Jimmy, and she does a lot of wonderful things. She's got t-shirts on the website. She's got tumblers. And so go take a look and see what's at the store. So we want to thank you for joining us. Give us a thumbs up. We'll be back next week. If you have a question, put it out there and we'll be glad to answer it. If you want the show notes are on our website at globalvisionfc.com under blog. But if you also want the show notes emailed to you, we can do that if you put your email address in. So we'll see you next week. Good night.
Shalom, everybody.
Bye.